This is the CHRILLCAST. I am Chris.
And I'm Will.
Oh,
And
I'm
I want
sorry.
there to be an awkward silence.
Yep, that's good. It wouldn't be the podcast if there wasn't one.
I was worried that we didn't tell you that ahead of time, but yes, the awkward silence needs to be there. You're right. So
Yeah, exactly.
Who do we have at the bottom here?
Lucas Raycevick, or just Raycevick, I guess. I don't know. I'm not used to saying my own name to people. I guess, as you can see in the background, I guess I run a YouTube channel. I think, at least that's what I believe I'm doing. Hopefully that's actually true. And I assume there's going to be some videos playing in the background.
Yes, I should have picked one. I actually really enjoyed your Need for Speed Carbon recently. You just put out last week. That was a good video.
To be honest, I hadn't heard of that game before.
It's okay. A lot of people didn't buy it, so they probably didn't know it either. It's, as I mentioned in that video, that there's quite the sales difference between that and its predecessor.
The Most Wanted is my favorite Need for Speed game. Like, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Like, I really enjoyed Most Wanted, so I appreciated Carbon. Because didn't that come to the PSP in some weird form?
Yeah, don't even get me started on that, or else I'm just going to quote myself. Yes, it did very bizarrely come to the PSP and other handhelds in the form of a subtitled version called Own the City. That was done by a completely different team with its own story and its own pacing and world and cars and such. Yeah, not a bad game, but very strange for a couple of handful of reasons that are quite significant.
I actually enjoyed the PSP version of Carbon, but I also played the console version. So I really like this video is great, honestly. Like, if you guys are looking for something to watch from Mr. Raycevick, watch this one. And then see if you're
watching us, you've already watched him, but do it again. Do it again.
Exactly. Exactly. You guys are coming from his channel to ours, and you're like, yeah, we already watch him.
And if you don't want to watch an hour of content, then there's hopefully something else, like maybe my game size video can suffice. Because, I mean, when I make videos, I don't go into them. I didn't make this Carbon video, for instance, intending, it's going to be an hour and 7 minutes. I just kind of, it's an hour because we go over the development, we go over the gameplay, the story, the mod scene, the handhelds, the ports, and all that type of stuff. It's like, I always try to make sure that if a video is going to be long, that it's not long because it's rambling, that it's long because we're covering a lot of different topics. Like, I was even disappointed in myself that I didn't fully delve into the multiplayer as much as I would have liked to. But, I mean, at some point, I already worked on this for 2 months. At some point, you got to cleave it off and just wish that you do better next time.
Yep.
You mean you didn't want to pull what Same Token did with his Halo recap video, and he spent 3 years on it?
Yeah, I don't want to do that, especially because, at that point, I'll be broke. And this entire YouTube thing, I'll have to go back to finding some really boring minimum wage job that will drive me nuts.
Fair enough. All right, well, you got that first question?
Yeah. So what inspired you to make your channel? I'm pretty certain you were making videos for another channel before, if I'm not mistaken.
Technically, no, just the one. Yeah. So I started making videos about 2006. Broke out my mother's laptop with iMovie and was making really god-awful Halo 2 montages. One day moved up to Halo 3. Those were awful as well. It stayed that way for quite some time. Montages, there's something I look back on and I can kind of laugh at and smile now. And I can also look back and realize how much my mindset of my feeling that videos need to have a rhythm definitely spawned from. Because montages, the ones that people know, yes, there's good gameplay, but a lot of them is almost all rhythm. Like the greatest Halo montage of all time, the Halo Gods from 2006, that one is just syncing kills to MC Hammer. There's nothing else to it. There's no other fancy tricks. There's no, Adobe After Effects or transitions. It's just very basic, and that's what all it is. And as a result, it's beloved. And I find that with editing, I kind of went into the montage video scene, realized all of that stuff I was doing was way overboard, and kind of took away from that at the end of the day, if you just time visuals and sounds, it'll grip people. And then if you combine that, some decent writing and stuff like that, then hopefully that'll carry it even further. But I guess I didn't answer the original question. The question of what inspired the channel, I had, because I was moving away from that old YouTube channel that had these old montages and commentaries, there were basically every single cliche that you could imagine of the 2009 internet scene, I had done, the commentaries, the top 10s, etc. And I just wanted to move away from that entirely. I wanted to just start completely fresh, no 1,000 subscribers that just make your channel look dead, no um, 900 videos that someone clicks on and goes, okay, I'm not looking at the backlog and all looks like garbage content anyways. Just like, I would rather a channel that just had one video that I was proud of.
Okay.
And I had just gotten out of university for documentary studies. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if after doing a 10-minute final that I then just doubled it on YouTube for no reason whatsoever. And that's where the Call of Duty video spawned from.
Okay.
There you go.
Very cool.
So so your series that you're doing now, the ones like years later, how did you end up on that as your kind of your main, one of your main focuses on your channel?
Yeah, because those have really become the pillar of the channel since then. Those are like the biggest projects. Those typically have more viewers, and they also seem to have the most repeat viewership as well. Like the Most Wanted video in particular, that one just kept getting bumped up and up and up and up consistently. And what spawned that basically was kind of unintentional. It actually kind of spawned from me being broke, because I wrote for a website called COG Connected at the time.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say.
Yes.
That's why I thought you were on another channel, because I remember seeing the Halo one on that. Okay.
Yeah. I originally wrote for those guys, and I know a couple of people there personally. To this day, actually, one of them's now working for a PR company as well, Sean, awesome dude. And he kind of gave me my chance when I just submitted something online in an email. And I was just, writing reviews and articles and stuff like that. And then the struggle then is that having just gone out of university and being broke, I didn't have the money to obviously buy new games, and I didn't like being reliant on COG for specific codes of games. Every once in a while, you get to review something like, the Metro collection that was re-released back then. And it's like, oh, hey, the perfect excuse to play 2 great games and get to write about stuff that is really good. For every one of those, you get several WRC Rally Slide. That's a game you beat in 2 hours. It's 5 out of 10, and it's not even interesting to write about because it's not even that bad nor that good. So in that environment, I'm like, okay, I want to write about something else. And then I was really inspired by Super Bunny Hop in particular at the time, and also Red Letter Media and stuff like that. And what kind of hit me, I was going, that was exactly at about the time when everyone was just tearing Halo 5 a new asshole. And understandably so. Halo 5's got a lot of problems. But what I noticed is that a lot of times the conversation around that game would go, just go back to the way things were. And I'm going, no, though, because I'm not saying that what they're doing with Infinite now, where they're trying to sort of rekindle the old art style and gameplay pace, that's wrong. But I think it's not right to go and say, hey, this game from 2001, just do that and make no advancements in that whatsoever. And that's really where the premise of Exploring that kind of came from, because it was like, people say, oh, hey, just go back to these games that are better. And it's like, well, can we actually explore what made them so good and bring up the areas where maybe they fell a bit short or where they struggled? And I've definitely changed my style over the years from there, but that was definitely the starting place of what years later was.
Very cool. Yeah, I remember catching it on the COG channel, and then I remember you had another video that came up on your own personal channel. I was like, oh, did he get fired? Did he quit? Did he part ways? He got too big?
No, we left on very amicable terms. It was a situation of, because the other thing too is that those videos, I think I'm pretty certain in the ODST video, I even joke how those just sat at 1,000, for months and months on end. That it was more just a thing I was just doing because whatever, 1,000 views was, the biggest thing I was doing at that time. And they were just fun. They were just really good practice. I had just gotten out of documentary studies and I was learning Adobe Premiere. So it was like, pretty much the perfect excuse as like a learning platform to expand my skill set. And when the Halo 3 and Halo Reach videos took off, that was when I was going, at that time, those were the only videos of that size on COG, aside from like a part 1 of like a new demo or whatever. And I was like, I have seen what happened with Yahtzee at the Escapist, where they're tied at the hip, and that site is not really known for anything else after they lost extra credits, Jim Sterling and Movie Bob, or rather when Movie Bob kind of did himself in terms of that website. I saw what happened with that, and I'm going, I don't want that to happen with COG. I don't want it to just be, especially because within that brief time span, I already saw people calling me COG Connected, and it's like, no, I was employee like number 15 or 20. There were a lot of people writing for that site. So I didn't want, I didn't want to inherit something that wasn't mine, essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
I totally get that. So I got to ask a question, because
yeah,
a lot of people hear your voice and think you're like amping it up for the videos, but it sounds like you talk the same way in real life that you do in your videos, which almost makes it even better.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm a lot more hyper in person, and I stutter a lot more, to the point where I'll even make fun of that. I mean, there's a reason I use a script. I don't consider myself to be a particularly witty person, but yeah, in terms of, this is just me. And I know a lot of people have this where, a lot of famous voice actors don't even like the sound of their own voice, and I don't like the sound of mine. But at the same time, if you're not going to be able to change it. You can't just go to a doctor's office and say, I'd like a new voice, please. I want to sound like Keith David, especially because a lot of people would just do that. So what you try to do is make the most of it, essentially. And what I learned is, especially like one of the reasons I can't stand my earlier videos is because those ones I was recording at like 1 a.m. because I was also sharing a 1-bedroom place with my mother at that time, because, I was using the couch at that time, and there was just no room and no time. It's an apartment complex where there's 6 people living around you, and you're right on a street where there's a construction site outside.
Yeah.
You're not recording at 2 p.m. at the optimal day or whatever. So I typically record at, midnight when everything's super quiet. And there, my voice is really raspy and low. And one of my family members was encouraging it, but I started to get more and more comments about, hey, vocal fry is a thing. Please stop. And I was going, they're right. I need to fix this. And that was when I changed it for Mass Effect 2. If you go back and you listen, that's where the narration style really changed, and I think very much for the better. Now when I go back and listen to those old videos, I can't stand them. Like my Doom video, I fucking despise because of that reason in particular.
Okay. Do you ever think about redoing them?
As I was saying earlier, though, it's kind of like, if you end up just redoing it, your old projects, you're never going to move on. You're never going to truly grow.
That's fair. Okay.
And it's like, and I also know too that, as much as I may dislike it, I know a lot of people that do. And I actually know some people like, that was one of their favorites. That was one of their introductory pieces to the channel. So it's like, I'm not going to say, hey, you're wrong. That video is garbage. Let me change it for you for my own personal, insecurity about how it sounds. And then for what exactly? So that people, because there's no way that it's going to get the same amount of attention. And then the people that already had seen it, they're not going to gain anything new from it either. The better way to do that would be to revisit a subject that's similar, which, I mean, Doom Eternal being out, I've considered at times, but I'll cross that bridge later kind of deal.
And you have to at least wait 5 years, right?
Yeah, occasionally I wait one.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll just keep rating, but yeah, I mean, I'll have plenty of ideas for things, but I don't really put myself to any particular, oh, you're going to do this game at this date and this and that. I did the Mass Effect ones back to back, and that was the only exception I ever made, because that was right when Andromeda was coming around the corner.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that was the only time I did back-to-back subjects. Typically what I like to do is I never want a series or a format to repeat. I don't want 3 years later in a row. I don't want 3 So I Finally Played in a row.
Okay.
That makes sense. Keep it fresh and a little bit of variety to it, right?
Exactly.
Do a however many years later of Sea of Thieves.
I mean, that's one that you can almost focus on the public perception of it in the way that changed. I mean, I almost consider it like, if I'm probably not going to cover No Man's Sky because it's not my type of game, but I mean, if I were to, that would definitely be something to bring up, is the way that not just the game itself changed over that time, but also how the way that people viewed it.
Yeah, well, that could be like a whole topic about like these live service games that actually succeeded after a few years.
I mean, it's definitely made reviewing more complicated. It's like one of the reasons I've not covered Battlefield 5, even though I've wanted to, is because it kept dramatically changing per patch. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to review a game that next month they drop a patch and everything's fucking changed about it, and everything I say is completely useless aside from the campaign. So yeah, it's definitely made things more difficult. I mean, nothing that people can't adapt to, obviously.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to cover Cyberpunk in 5 years.
I want to. I actually want to. What's so funny about Cyberpunk is that now I'm in the position where friends and all those type of people poke fun at me for enjoying it. When up until release, I was one of the people that was extremely skeptical about it, and everyone around me was like, hyping themselves up for that launch. So it's just, yeah, it's a funny situation of how that flipped. And then I'm also curious to, I think I even said on Twitter as well that, I did have a Cyberpunk video written. It wasn't a years later. It was a very short, like kind of 6-minute piece on one particular aspect of the game. And I just held off on it because I saw the discourse around the game and I thought, no, people will watch it, but they won't actually listen to anything I say because
they'll just comment in the section.
Exactly.
Just say, this.
Yeah. They'll comment their own personal story. And here's the thing, they're not wrong to do that, but it's just, I don't care enough about, I never want to just go into a video and do it purely for the attention because even if that succeeds, if it ends up not really saying anything interesting then no one's going to ever revisit it. And one of the biggest compliment I could get is when people tell me that they go back and rewatch a whole bunch of videos all in a row, because that's what I want. That's what the channels I admire. That's exactly what I did to Bunny Hop and a bunch of other people. And it's like, that's what I want to build.
You want that evergreen feeling, right? Like people can go back and watch your videos anytime, anywhere.
I don't want people to click on the channel and think, oh, our games in video form. Okay. This is just every hot topic of that. No, I don't want that.
Yeah, I go back and rewatch those Halo ones pretty frequently.
Oh, that's not good because I don't like those very much.
Well, too bad. I watch them anyway.
Exactly. Got the spirit. Exactly.
You'll get my views and you'll like it.
I mean, you did notice, I mentioned earlier, wanting to grow videos. The one that I felt made me grow the most was Halo Reach, because that was the video that, compared to all the others, was controversial. It's got, I think, an exactly like 60-40 ratio, maybe even less. And the reason for that is because I was very critical of the game, but it's one of those situations where I don't disagree with what I said. I disagree with how I said it and how I came across, because I was still experimenting with my voice and my style at that time. And what I realized is that a lot of people will come to me and they will either say, that's my favorite video ever because I fucking hated that game too. Or they come to me and say, I didn't watch your channel because that's, it pissed me off so much. And I'm like, this is not good, because the people that hate the game are getting their confirmation bias, and the people that don't like it aren't seeing any other perspective. Yeah. So it's not useful. And I'm not a particular big fan of either Sam Harris or Neil deGrasse Tyson, but they had a really good conversation that I watched immediately after that video got posted. And it was basically Neil saying to Sam, look, when you are producing content, whether it's an article, writing, podcast, whatever, you're the host and your viewers are the guest. So if your viewers are misattributing what you're saying, you have to take at least some, if not all, of the responsibility for that being the case. In basketball, if you pass the ball and someone doesn't catch it, it's your fault, because you're supposed to set up the scenario that it is physically impossible for the person not to catch it. And same thing with a rear end collision. And that was that. And you'll notice from Halo Reach to the Halo 4 video that there's a big shift in tone where when a topic is explored, I don't just say, and this is what happened, we move on. No, we explore all the different angles, because that's what I'm more interested in. I don't care if people agree with me or not. That's not my goal. My only goal is to make someone view something in a way that they didn't originally consider, or get information that they originally didn't have, which the reason, not to keep this question going, but in the case of Mass Effect 3, the reason that was the first video I was actually proud of is because I saw a lot of people in comments saying that that's a game that pissed them off for years. And when I gave them the explanation behind the development, they forgave it. And they didn't say, oh, the ending's good now. They didn't do that. I don't want people to go in and just completely match my opinion beat for beat. I want to supply information, and they can decide what to do with that.
Yeah, I don't remember being pissed off with the Halo Reach episode. And the thing is, like, I really like that game, so I don't know. And now I gotta go back and rewatch it and see
And again, it's like if I were to remake that one, and that's one of the ones I've considered as like, maybe like an anniversary thing or like a subscriber milestone thing. But if I were to redo that one, a lot of my criticisms would remain. I would just go about explaining them differently rather than here's a criticism, move on. Because if you're someone they're like, well, hey, wait a minute, why do you make that point? What are your reasons for it? You're not being addressed at all.
Right. That makes sense.
Do you make a point in that video about how they should have reversed the first level and they started off inside?
That's one of the ones I would keep. That's one of the criticisms I would keep.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. Yeah, okay, I remember the video. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that, although that is also something I've also adjusted with since then, because if a game developer gets told, hey, you should have done X, Y, Z, if it's not within their budget time frame or tools of the engine, then it's useless criticism. We could pick apart something to be better all day long. If it's not actually within one of the reasons I bring up development and pre-production first isn't to say, hey, you guys shouldn't criticize, in this case, Mass Effect 3. You shouldn't criticize Mass Effect 3 because it was made in 11 months. It's, you should criticize Mass Effect 3 for what it got wrong. However, here's the circumstances behind it and the reasons for it. So, because when you look at why do we just go to the Turian moon and nothing else, and then you hear about how they cleaved, multiple, if not a dozen planets from existence. Okay, well, now it makes a lot more sense. Mm-hmm. It's still not good. It's still not great, but you now understand the reason why. And that's very much the goal of the series.
Yeah, I will say that critique with Halo Reach actually kind of ruined that first level, because it's like, oh yeah, they definitely should have started off inside and gone to the outside.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I'm just like, why didn't they? And again, part of me understands why, because they made many improvements to the engine with draw distance and detail. So obviously you want to show that off, but I still feel like they could have shown that just in a different way. But again, I almost kind of hesitate with that because it's kind of a thing of, yeah, so what? Let's go into more like details of like I can make suggestions about how to make a game better all day long. At the end of the day, it's armchair development. I'm not there type of deal.
Yeah. Well, I think that you already kind of answered the next question, but maybe you have some extra details. But where do you learn about editing, filming, and directing?
It wasn't university. It was a lot of self-taught. It was, I started with, my mother's laptop with iMovie, and then moved from there, went up to Sony Vegas, and then later on Adobe Premiere, and a lot of self-teaching, a lot of me going, wait, you can do that. Why the fuck haven't I done that for the last 4 years? But when I eventually got to university, though, that was basically the excuse for me to skip quite a few editing classes, because I was like, yes, I know what cutting is. Yes, I know what transitions are, blah, 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 and that kind of thing. So not that I'm complaining. University was very useful. But in terms of just the technical know-how, yeah, it was all very much self-taught sort of experience.
Cool. That's usually the best way to learn, because then it's really ingrained.
Yeah, and it very much stemmed from inspiration. I can actually tell a funny story related to this, because I've joked to friends that a lot of directors explain that Star Wars is the movie that basically opened up their eyes to what a film could be in terms of taking to another world and the effects and all that type of stuff, and how it made a lot of people want to get into actually making film. The movie Snatch is my Star Wars. That Guy Ritchie gangster movie, that was the one that opened up my eyes, because my dad, I was going to put in Space Jam for the 12th time, and my dad was considering blowing his brains out, and finally said, I don't care if this fucking kid is 10 years old. We're going to put on a better movie than that. And he put on Snatch. And it was just like a revelation for me. I was just laughing myself to the floor from start to finish. And it really opened my eyes to the filmmaking. And in that movie, there's a scene where they intercut between 3 different cars driving in perspectives, and it's edited out of order. And I had figured out what the actual timeline of events was before my dad, and I rewatched that sequence alone, just on repeat, a couple dozen times, maybe 100 times all in a row. And my dad was concerned. He was just like, have I just mentally damaged my kid? And like me selfishly not wanting to watch Space Jam, have I made my kid stupid? Because he's now just watching this 1 3-minute sequence endlessly, and he won't stop. And it wasn't until I moved to YouTube where he went, oh, I didn't make my kid stupid. I just made him an editor now.
That's awesome.
So about how long does it take you from start to finish? You just said you watched one clip of 3 minutes 100 times, but
Yeah.
when you're doing your editing for your own videos and your narration and all that good stuff, about how long does it take you start to finish, especially for the years later videos?
It really varies, because so if you get something like the one I did before then, the game size video, that was really just, it all of a sudden came together in just a week. I was just like, oh, hey, let me just write up the script on this topic because fucking Call of Duty, Jesus Christ, slow down your goddamn download sizes. And it made me, look a little bit into the topic and build a little bit of, I mean, I guess a point or thesis or whatever you want to call it. I didn't go to writing school. But so you get situations like that, but then you also get cases like Metro where the research is taking weeks and weeks because you're trying to find really hyper specific information on certain details, and conflicting information. The biggest challenges is when you get games like Carbon, where the development isn't very much explained by either an article or a documentary, and therefore you end up going to 80 different websites, hearing 80 different conflicting pieces of information, and then trying to, out of basically assemble a timeline out of a collage of which pieces to assemble to build a linear line. So yeah, in the case, it can vary from a couple weeks. I used to be on point and get videos out every 2 weeks, but when it got to a point where some videos that I kind of just felt like I was just throwing those out there, I didn't mind taking more time off. Mainly the Orange Box video is the one that changed that. That was the one that I took some extra time off on, and I'm glad I did because it would not have been ready had I just put it out in the normal 2 weeks.
Oh, well, you got the next one.
Oh, okay.
He's concentrating, clicking thumbnails, okay? It's a very strenuous task.
No, I'm the one doing that, Will.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I was still focused on that. I was curious. All right. So, I mean, you kind of mentioned that you have to go through maybe several websites to find the information you're looking for. Yeah. But how do you go about doing the research? Like, how do you find like what is reliable, what's not?
A lot of tedium. A lot of, let's go to GameSpot and IGN and click on every single article they wrote about this single game. And there's a lot of, tedium. Oh, this game's coming out on this date. Oh, we played the demo and it was good, and that type of deal. And you're basically, it's kind of, it's kind of like, peeling through an oyster. You're just, going through that ocean. You're just getting mile after mile after mile of nothing, until all of a sudden you're like, hey, fucking bomb, this is a really important piece of information. The most fun I ever had researching was Metro, though, because that was one that just kept getting bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb. And I don't mind telling this story either, in that I called up Mandalore Gaming because obviously he's closely attached to things like Stalker, Metro, and all that type of stuff. And I had just finished the games, and I was looking for someone originally to talk about the story and atmosphere and stuff like that, because it's good to brainstorm with people about points you make about a game and all that. So I call them up and we're talking about Metro, and then I mentioned the development section where I'm trying to get my hands on this demo that they showed for the game back in 2006. And I'm like, that is really odd because they put out this demo from Metro before Stalker had even come out, and yet they're claiming they didn't steal Stalker's tech. And I'm going, that sounds like bullshit. And he goes, yeah, that does sound like bullshit. And then before I even said anything, or rather as I'm talking, I didn't put the pieces together when I heard typing on his keyboard. He was going to sketchy Russian websites. And there was ones that like said to have a demo, and then he gave them, he's like, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I just gave a sketchy Russian website my Twitter account. And I'm like, why did you do that? And he's like, you don't need to, man, we can stop it. No, it's already done. So through that process, I won't say specifically how, but through that process, we got our hands on the Metro demo, and we spent about the next 3 or 4 hours just hysterically laughing about finding files that said, stalker.mp3 and monolith this and this creature that. And it just, yeah, it was like, we're sitting on a fucking lawsuit here right now. Like, we could potentially put people in trouble. And I remember another reaction too was, I'm not competitive in terms of the YouTube scene. Like, if another channel talks about a game I'm doing, I don't care. And if anything, I actually look forward to it. One of my favorite things about finishing a game is like, oh, I get to watch everyone else's stuff now instead of holding off, for spoilers and stuff. But When I saw that channel put out their doc from Metro, they put that out like a week or two beforehand. And me and Men are like, shit, they got their hands on the demo. And then we saw their footage, like, oh, wait, they didn't talk about this or that. Ah, we're good then. They just got the engine and they got some very pretty shots. They didn't talk about the files in there.
Good. That's lucky.
Yeah, but research. It's very, very fun. It's like the video game Squad, where it's 90% shit and boring. That for the 10% is really fun and exhilarating and amazing.
See, I think the idea of video game archaeology is going to be a thing in the near future, where like older demos and games are going to be like this treasure that people will be finding years later, like Halo Zero. I didn't realize like so many people didn't know what Halo Zero was. So I posted some screenshots on Twitter and they were like, what is this? And I was like, dude, this is from like the Halo 2 days. You know, this is old school 2D Halo by an independent developer back in the mid 2000s before Halo. When
you pointed footage like what's on screen and you tell someone, yeah, that's Team Fortress 2, they're just naturally like, what the fuck do you mean that's Team Fortress 2? It looks nothing like it. And yeah, that's where, you know, a lot of games, one of my, essentially, when it comes to games coverage, one of the most disappointing things I have just in, I guess, one of the chip on my shoulder or beef or whatever you want to call it, I find that we need a lot more encouragement to just show how games are made. Not say, oh, you need to suck the developer's dick and they can do no wrong. You don't need to, you know, say, oh, absolutely, it's always EA's fault, the publisher, 100% of the time. You don't need to do that, but just give out information for people, because a lot of anger and mismanagement and understanding about games, it just comes from lack of information. And in that case, you can't blame people for that. You know, that's not, people are not going to be universally informed. So it's really on journalists, it's on website, and it's on companies to some extent, even though they're never going to do it because there's no financial benefit for them to do so, to give out that information.
I would argue against that, though. Like the Vidocs for Halo made the community feel a lot closer. Like that's almost the opposite of what you're saying.
There's absolutely, to me, I would argue the same point, that there's absolutely ways that you can show, statistically even, that there's a benefit to revealing your cards to people, and that it even can build empathy sometimes. It can build understanding within your community. It can make people feel a lot more involved. But across the board, companies just do not seem interested. And in the other case, too, is that in something like, say, preserving servers for a game like Lawbreakers, or bringing back something like the PT demo, there isn't any financial benefit for the companies to do those types of things in that situation, even though I would absolutely believe it is the right thing to do. It's a lot of people in communities. I really love Ross Scott's message in his content about, he very much openly talks about how much of a problem killing games is, because it's a big problem in terms of the issue of preservation. Because one of the other aspects too, not to continue this on for too long, but one of the biggest issues is that for a film, there's plenty of films that, you know, we've lost the original rolls of, that have broken quality and stuff like that. We've lost a lot of things, but at the end of the day, if you do finally get that copy, you can play that film with most pieces of equipment. Games are a lot more finicky in terms of getting stuff to run. There are several PC games I own that I cannot play on this machine. I personally got bricked my entire PC by King Kong. You know, situations like that. If I want to play Deus Ex Invisible War, I'm pretty much need to go and build a personal XP computer, you know, just to play that game again, because it doesn't run on modern software. So, I mean, that itself is already an issue, let alone getting things like the original builds of games in the first place.
I had to do some heavy modifications just to get Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 2 to run on my Windows 10 PC. That was a pain.
It is totally commonplace for people to have to dig into config files for games that realistically are not really that old. We're not talking 1990s when MSN gaming was a thing. You know, we're talking 10, 14 years ago, maybe.
100%. The architecture.
It was actually pretty easy to get The Witcher on my PC. All I had to do is go to their website and download a patch. And I'm guessing
probably because, you know, they were a PC primary developer, although of course that company's now in trouble for how they screwed up consoles. It's also, that's the other aspect too, is that very rarely is there ever a situation where all the pieces come together at once.
Right.
There's a lot of sacrifices in this business. There's a lot of what I mentioned in terms of, oh, I had an issue with this video, but I just left it in because it's better just to leave it there and move on. Games have that to extreme degrees all the time. And it's just a shame then that a lot of those issues then can't be fixed in the future because of the lack of support and coverage and sustainability for preserving them.
There's definitely a topic for the episode on Monday that we'll be talking some about that a little bit, and I'll bring it up when we do that segment. But you made me just remember that, so we'll definitely talk about that later. What was your video that was hardest to find information for?
Max Payne 3 was a real bitch. Rockstar are very secretive. Mass Effect Andromeda as well. Pretty much anything from EA because they keep everything so close to them. Very rarely do they ever open up. And, you know, I was with VMC, one of the third-party QA teams that they hire at EA. So I'd seen it firsthand how privatized it is. Yeah, no, I think those are probably the two that come to my mind immediately. Metro was difficult, and while that one was really fun in a lot of ways, it was also really frustrating in terms of the stuff that I couldn't hunt down and find. Modern Warfare, when it comes to my mind, that was probably the most difficult, just because of I spent so long trying to get, because for those that don't know, Infinity Ward have publicly said in G4, I believe, back in the day, that the original Call of Duty was pitched as a Modern Warfare game. And they didn't go with it because Activision said, yeah, we kind of just want a Medal of Honor killer. So could you please do that? And so they're like, okay, fine, because, you know, there's lots of things we didn't get to do in World War II anyway, so we'll go ahead and do that. But I'm just like, oh, I really want to see that original Call of Duty, though. I want to see, you know, the original Modern Warfare, essentially. And I just could not find it. I could not find, you know, even a single screenshot, and I devoted a lot of time to not letting it go. And the other difficult part about that game, too, is just the amount. That was one where there was a lot of conflicting information from different sources. So it was an absolute godsend to get. I feel so awful for not knowing his name right now at the top of my head, but he made a fantastic video on the Chernobyl stealth level in Call of Duty 4. If you just look it up, I think that's what it is. Go watch it. It's fantastic. But I coordinated with him, and he supplied me a transcript with the interview he got with 3 of the leads on there. And that was a massive, massive benefit to understanding what happened there. I'll see if I can go find it myself here, because I really feel bad for not knowing exactly. Chernobyl Call of Duty 4 stealth level development. And I can multitask in the meantime, so if there's another question you want to ask, I don't mind at all.
Yeah, so...
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I saw something. Game Brain. That was the guy who made the video of it. And the making of Modern Warfare is all gillied up. That's the video in particular. It's a fantastic video, and Game Brain, he's awesome. He was an awesome person to talk to, and he really saved my ass in providing a transcript for the interviews that he had with some of the developers.
Cool. So if you guys want to check out Game Brain, there you go. There's the channel. This is what the video looks like.
That video is highly recommended.
I'll put a link in the description of the video or comment section or somewhere. There'll be a link somewhere for this video.
And that developer that was just on screen, he actually commented on the video as well. That's one of my favorite parts. It's rare, but one of the best parts is when you get a developer that responds to it and takes a liking to it. That's really awesome and really flattering to see.
Have you ever had a developer comment and be mad about what you said?
Not yet, thank God. I don't want to be in that situation. I work really hard to avoid it. I mean, of course, if a developer did come over to have an issue with it, I would absolutely hear them out and listen to them, because, you know, okay, if it's just a case of, oh, you shouldn't have made that criticism, that's different. Then, you know, let's verify the information. It's more of, if they don't like my opinion, then that's okay. I don't care about that. It's if I got something wrong, that's very different, because I try my best to absolutely give them the best. I want to play fair. And especially in sharing information, because at the end of the day, I can be as confident as I am in whatever I'm putting out. At the end of the day, I wasn't there. You know, it is hearsay, and it is putting pieces together from interviews and stuff like that, is based on a lot of assumptions. So you're trying to be very balanced in that regard.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. Will's got the next one.
Yeah, so are you looking forward to the Mass Effect Trilogy Legendary Edition?
I imagine that's a big talking point recently.
Mhm.
Actually, out of curiosity, what do you guys think of it first? I know you asked me, but I'm curious because I know my thoughts on it. But I'm
I've got
curious
a whole mess of opinions on the Mass Effect trilogy. I'm going to get it, so there, just get that out of the way. I am going to get it, but I enjoy the original games in the way that they are currently, and I keep seeing on Twitter they're posting the comparison shots, and a lot of it to me looks like fancy lens flares that I'm not a huge fan of. And there's some cut content like the Pinnacle Station is gone, which I actually really enjoyed. I know I'm kind of in the minority there, but I thought Pinnacle Station was really great. And so because of a couple of those things and there's a whole bunch of aspects that I'm not looking forward to, but those things are, in my opinion, negatives for the new trilogy coming out. It's not going to be like the bee's knees of what I wanted out of a remake of the games. But some of the things they are doing, I do think are good, like fixing some of the models in Mass Effect 1, and we'll see what the gameplay looks like, because I don't know what they're changing in Mass Effect 1's gameplay, but I did go back and play it recently just for my own fun, and I still think the mechanics kind of hold up, honestly. There's some issues, but it holds up.
Yeah, in my opinion, I'm deeply offended by the butt gate.
I don't even touch that.
Yeah, I don't care. See, honestly, like I already own the games, so I'm just gonna wait to see like if it really is an improvement, and like, if it's a change in UI where it's actually easier to use and there's some quality of life improvements, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. In regards to, there is one point I can give some information on in terms of the Pinnacle Station DLC. One of the aspects of that is the Pinnacle Station DLC also didn't feature in the PS3 version of Mass Effect 1 that had all the DLC as well. And the reason for that is because of all the DLCs they've ever made in the game's history, Pinnacle Station is the only one where the source code is corrupted.
Source code is corrupted, and I think it was a third party that made it.
Yeah, I think so. And also, considering that Pinnacle Station's reception, I'm also thinking that Byra probably didn't put in much effort to fix the corrupted source code thing. They probably kind of let that kind of go. So, yeah, it's one of those things that doesn't, it doesn't bother me too much. I mean, I played it. It's shit, in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. And
my criticism of that is Pinnacle Station could have been a great side story that they could have redone, because they have a lot of money behind this game. I mean, not like a full, like if you were making new games, I doubt it's that kind of budget, but they have enough of a budget that if they wanted to make Pinnacle Station great, they could have. And I think that what they had there could have been great. And I enjoyed what it was.
Yeah, but try pitching that. It's like no one liked this. So why would you spend more money to make it better?
I've in my Alpha Protocol video, that's exactly what I advocate for. I advocate for, sequels to awesome games are great, but a sequel to a game that is very flawed and just needs that little bump. I mean, in many ways, that was Mass Effect 1 in a lot of people's eyes. I really do like Mass Effect 1's gameplay as well, but there's absolutely a lot of jank to it. There's a lot of, it has a bit of a slow introduction, and there's some, boring inventory management. You have to go with characters and stuff like that. So that the next game's ironed out, and as a result, even though those are just minor improvements in the hardcore player's eyes, to the casual player, it was something that it got rid of a lot of the speed bumps to getting into the experience proper. In terms of the Legendary Edition, I also feel kind of mixed on it, in the sense of I look at Eden Prime and I go, I don't like this change at all. It very much reminds me of the 343 Guilty Spark art style change in Halo Remastered, where it just completely alters the feeling and mood of the level. Like, I'm imagining hearing Eden Prime's music to that new screenshot, and it just weirds me out. It doesn't fit the mood at all. But then you see something like Pharaohs, and that, to me, just looks like a straight-up improvement. It looks great in terms of the texturing and the lighting and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it is in terms of overall. All I hope for in the case of Mass Effect 1 is that they don't ultimately remove the special parts of it that made it distinct. So, like, for instance, one of my favorite parts of Mass Effect 1 is that Krogan are truly terrifying.
Yes.
When you come around the corner and you see a Krogan, it's a problem, and you need to solve it, and you need to solve it fast. They are quick, they are dense, they deal fucking big damage from multiple ranges. So, and then in Mass Effect 2 and 3, they're just kind of pushovers, and I didn't like that very much. I didn't care for, no longer feeling that. So it's like those aspects of Mass Effect 1, I want them to retain those things, and hopefully so they don't I hate the term casualization because it's kind of been used too much, but yeah, I don't want them to, I guess, make it more just like the direction of Mass Effect 2, because Mass Effect 2, while it is, I think, the better game in construction, I find its gameplay over time, I actually felt was the weakest because it didn't have the highs of Mass Effect 1 at its best, and it didn't have the speed and fluidity of 3. It's kind of just 2010 gameplay, summarized. Just the absolute basic bitch cover shooting and really nothing else going on in terms of your mobility or usability as a character.
So the last thing I want to say about this, because I think we're going to be talking about this on another segment as well, the Mass Effect trilogy stuff. What I hope they don't lose from Mass Effect 1 is, like you said, the feeling. Like Halo Anniversary kind of lost the feeling of what Mass Effect 1 was.
Exactly.
And I didn't actually realize that until Will pointed it out to me, because it had been so long since I'd played in Halo CE, but when I booted up the original and played it side by side with my capture card, I was like, man, this has really changed the way this game plays.
Yeah, I played in the original graphics.
Mm-hmm. I typically go back to the original graphics too, and it's like, because it's like people say, oh, but the new graphics are better, and it's like, technically, yes, no, everything is much sharper in detail, but that's not the criticism. The criticism is the style, and it's not even that the style they went with is inherently wrong or anything. It's just that it's more awkward when you're remastering a game that already exists.
Yes,
I think Call of Duty 4 is the example of a great remaster. They did change things, they did tweak things, but things that I think really enhanced the immersion, the atmosphere of the game. Particularly things like a lot of it's set piece as well. They even touched those up just in really minor, subtle ways that made them that much more powerful. So yeah, I'm not at all opposed to remastering or tweaking things. Just not in terms of all outright changing the entire atmosphere of a level, unless it's like, I guess, if it's a bad level that people hate, then yeah, I guess that one, go ahead, try more changes or whatever.
Okay, do you know this guy?
Hayden, one of my friends. Yes, absolute madman. Absolute
I thought I saw a video of
insane.
him with you and Mandalore talking about BioShock.
Yes, his videos are hysterical. I would highly recommend them. He is insane. And funny story about that segment in particular, I told him I was doing the video, and I said, hey, I want you to be in it because I think it'd be really funny if you quoted this development section. And I gave him the context of what was said between the developers and the lead guy that was heading that company at the time. However, I forgot to mention to him that it was GSC Game World. Yeah, Ramska, that's his channel name.
There it is.
I forgot to mention, though, that it was GSC Game World, so all he was going off of were the developers' names I gave, and he had Rockstar on his building originally there in the segment. That segment's entirely done by him. And I'm like, why is there Rockstar there? And he said, oh, well, that's the story I got. I got the story of Rockstar where the developer, whose name was exactly the same as the one I gave him, had the case of a leader abusing the developers. And I'm like, okay, coincidence. However, that's not the studio I'm talking about. And I'm just like, and he's just like, oh, okay, that actually makes a lot more sense. Why are you doing a video on Rockstar? That's fucking bizarre. Okay, and he just quickly changed it to GSC.
That's funny. Yeah, I was actually surprised when I saw your name come up on this video. I was like, what? And so I watched it. I think it was like a week or two ago, and I was waiting. I was like, man, is Raycevick in this video? And eventually, towards the end, that was when you guys made your first appearance, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
But yeah, this guy is hilarious.
Yeah, Ramska is absolutely hilarious, and yeah, me and Mandalore have appeared on his channel a couple of times, and yeah, it's often very out of the blue as well. It's very one of my other friends, Clue, who's appeared on my channel, and he appeared in Hayden's video one time. There's a case of, so in one of Hayden's videos, the reason why. It's Mandalore, Daniel Falala, another mutual friend of his, and another person there too, who I feel bad for forgetting his name. The reason Mandalore was there and not Clue is because Hayden just out of nowhere DM my friend Clue and said, hey, I need you to say this line. And line was, I swear she was only 900 years old. And Clue's like, no, I'm not doing that, with no context. And he's like, okay. And then he just moved on and went to the next person. And that's what he does. He'll just randomly tag you and things, say, hey, so like I've known him for like he used to be a COD commentator way back in the day, like 2009, 2010 sort of thing. That's where I knew him from. Yeah, he's hilarious. He's utterly hilarious.
He's one of those guys that I feel like if you let him talk, he'll literally probably talk the whole time, just consistently at the rate of the high energy he's at in his videos. Because my goodness, there's not a lot of people that can talk with that amount of energy for that long that he does.
I've got another funny story. I actually got multiple funny stories with him, but one in particular. So I was scrolling through my YouTube channel one day. I happened to click, I think it auto played my Call of Duty, the Call of Duty Identity video I did. And when I clicked on it, it was just playing in the background until I looked closer and I saw a yellow bar, the playback bar. And I'm like, wait, that's weird. And I realized it was an ad, and the ad was my own video. On the video, it was being advertised on. So like the Call of Duty video was being advertised, the Call of Duty Identity video on it. And I'm like, that's really fucking weird. Like, is this broken? Did it need to play an ad? Is it playing this instead? So I just thought that was really strange. And I didn't think anything of it. And then 3 months go by and Hayden is telling me about how much money he will spend for a joke. And then he mentions YouTube. And I'm like, Hayden. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, a couple months ago, I was watching my Call of Duty Identity video and it played the ad as that video. And he's like, motherfucker, you should have said something. And he reveals he spent like $900 on that just to play that video as the ad.
That's awesome.
Talk about committing to a joke. Holy cow.
He's an absolute madman, and yeah, he will go so far for it. I mean, there's videos of him running around in public in trash bags. He has no public shame at all.
We gotta have him on the channel sometime, Will.
Yeah.
Oh, he will fuck with you too so bad.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how to follow that one up now. Okay. Here's a great. What's your favorite Mass Effect game?
Totally related.
Favorite Mass Effect. I mean, my cop out of my videos is that I don't think there is a best one. I don't think there's one that's truly peaked. If you pointed a gun at my head and forced me to, I'd probably go 2, just because it has probably the best heartfelt moments in the game with its loyalty quests. It has, in my opinion, the best graphics just in terms of art style. Places like Omega and the Citadel just look absolutely fantastic. That game with a 4K texture patch still looks fantastic to this day.
Yeah.
In terms of the environments and the character designs and such. It's got an amazing ensemble, and yeah, it's got probably the weakest gameplay wise, but I mean, I've also said too that at the end of the day, what grabbed me about Mass Effect wasn't its gameplay or even the plot. It was mainly the characters in the world. And funny enough, that was actually pretty much my experience with Cyberpunk as well. Is I've got tons of issues with it, but I just fell in love with that world. And there's just those things like, there's just your Cowboy Bebops or your Avatars or your Mass Effects. And just these things where just these worlds are so detailed that I just I'll go out and get comics and books and all these, and so I'll just dig myself head deep in that world for a couple weeks. That's some of the most fun I can have.
Imagine a world where Andromeda had actually been successful from the public's perspective. Like, we would still be having new Mass Effect games right now.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing with Andromeda is that I was actually talking about this with a friend a couple days ago, this exact thing. And it was, if Andromeda was made purely out of an individual team was inspired to go and tell a different story somewhere else, yeah, I think it would have been great. The issue is that very much the reason it was made was as a reaction to Mass Effect 3, like how it was even connected to a Twitter poll and stuff like that. And I was like, that's just not how a game should be made. It shouldn't be made of, oh, well, we have to go here because if we do anything else, our fans will be angry. It's like, well, in that case, just wait it out, because I mean, we're at a point now where, I mean, a new Mass Effect trailer dropped for a new game, and people, while trepidatious because BioWare's recent failures and stuff like Anthem, the prospect of going back to that galaxy with characters they know has got people excited itself. And that would have happened regardless of Andromeda's circumstances. So in that case, they could have used it to just like, hey, we're going to tell completely just its own story in its own world and our own creatures and stuff like that.
Right, like going from KOTOR to Mass Effect, right?
Yeah.
They got to tell their own story. So
Yeah, kind of essentially, yeah, sort of the idea of kind of building their own KOTOR in a way would have been pretty interesting.
Yeah, agreed.
so what was
Yeah, so going along the same idea with the games, are you looking forward to Halo Infinite?
I'll see if I can. I said a line in my Discord chat the other day that was unintentionally harsh, and it was someone asked me, "Hey, are you worried about Infinite?" And I said, "Well, in order for me to be worried, I'd have to care." And then
Get
like,
off this.
wait, and I'm like, hold on. That could be really taken bad for it. So, okay, Infinite, it's a game that I'm sure I'll get some enjoyment out of because I got enjoyment out of 4 and 5. I like 4's campaign a lot. I even enjoy 4's multiplayer. I really enjoy that game overall. It's okay. That's a pretty common reaction. I'm used to. Yeah, Halo 5's multiplayer too. I got a lot of enjoyment out of as well.
I really like the multiplayer of Halo 5. So
yeah, it's just a case of, but neither of those games, really lasted with me. Halo 4 I can revisit in some ways, and same thing with 5, but they don't I don't really think back to those games in terms of their content the way that I do with 1, 2, and 3. So it's a situation of I'm sure I'll get some enjoyment at Infinite, but I'm not putting any pressure on. I'm not thinking
that's fair.
This campaign or this multiplayer better do X, Y, Z, because I frankly have no idea what they're going to do at this rate. And considering the people that have been laid off and changing leaders, I'm not sure if they know what they're going to do. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. I mean, the new screenshots that they released look really good. The gameplay itself sounds really fun, and I love that Joe Staten's back. I love his little blurb at the end of the posts now. It just reminds me of what made me excited for the release of Halo 2.
It's really interesting to see how quickly the discourse around it has changed in the course of these 2 updates. Because, after that demo, it wasn't even a case of I had my criticism of the demo and stuff like that, but I think the real takeaway that most people had was just, are you guys sure this looks ready? Because this doesn't look ready. There's a lot of things just missing here in terms of this doesn't look like a finished complete product here. And eventually came out that, it wasn't. And I think especially after the controversy that Cyberpunk went through, people really realized, no, we don't want the game out right now. We don't want a repeat of that because, I mean, in the case of a lot of people with Cyberpunk, I mean, one of the other reasons that I think, maybe I'm one of the people that enjoyed it is because I kind of got lucky in terms of how it ran on my machine. I don't blame people at all that are angry that waited those years, bought it on an Xbox, and then it's literally fucking unplayable for them. Or they buy it on a PC and it crashes 7 times on them in the first half hour, and there's no reasonable fix. So, for Infinite, when that got delayed, there was initial kind of mixed reaction. Now, I think with just the 2 updates, people go, no, it's a good thing that this got pushed back. Because, just in a couple of screenshots, all of a sudden, people that I know who hadn't paid attention to Halo in years are like, holy shit, this game looks fucking great. This looks like a next-gen Halo properly.
Yep. Yeah, it is crazy. I follow all the Halo guys on Twitter and a lot of the Halo community. And it's crazy how they're so upset, and now it's just sunshine and daisies.
And it's why I think it's also an example to what was interesting about the initial reaction with Infinite as well, because I think a lot of the community's toxicity and stuff like that has come from trying to write things off. So when people have criticisms of 4 and 5, it's just because you're a fanboy. It's just because you can't move on from the past. You don't want anything to evolve. And then if you like the new games, it's just because you're a fucking you didn't grow up with the old stuff or whatever. And it's neither of those things is completely true. And I think what was funny is that with Infinite coming out, that demo didn't really satisfy either crowd. The Halo 4 fans were pretty upset about the needless changes they were making. And then a lot of classic players are going, this still doesn't look like what we're asking for. I think Favin made an amazing point when he was talking about how people in the community were trying to say, no, the sprint is fine because it looks super slow and useless. And Favin's going, that's the state we're at right now. We're praising something because we think it looks like it plays like shit. It's baffling. So we'll have to wait and see how the recent gameplay change and stuff like that. I'm really curious. It makes one wonder how many changes can they realistically make in a year with one creative director change. But
I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out. I remember when he was first hired on, I was like, oh, there's only a couple months. He's not going to do anything.
Exactly.
But I guess we should have seen the writing on the wall.
That was the real first sign that, they're going to have to make a serious delay with this.
Yeah. I will say that I have never had a problem with sprint in Halo. I don't really. I think it's better implemented in Halo 5 than Halo 4 as far as for the competitive part. But
Yeah.
I remember when I first saw a demo with it in Halo Reach, how pumped I was. I was like, I always remember like walking around Halo 1. It's like, man, it takes me forever to get around.
Yeah, it's a weirdly complex topic. It's definitely one of those things that, absolutely on the surface. It's like how I actually asked because I heard side hand controversies around Black Ops 4 Zombies mode.
Mhm.
And I'm not very involved with that community. I stopped playing zombies after Black Ops 1 pretty much.
Mhm.
So I'm looking on the outside. I'm like, well, this looks fine. Like you've got your perks and you've got your guns and you've got your pack a punch and stuff like that. It's one of those things where on the surface, to a casual onlooker, oh yeah, this is zombies and this is totally fine. It's only the hardcore crowd that put in their criticisms of it, and then as a result of that, that's why it's harder to make someone coming into it care, especially because a lot of it is told through anger, through a lot of vitriol and a lot of really needlessly drawn out, Reddit posts and stuff like that. Similar thing with Sprint and Halo. Favin's done a good job, breaking it down to more bite-sized chunks and videos. Even he has, very much changed his tone over the years, and he understood why, because at first the people that when he make a point, a lot of people just wouldn't listen because like, you just sound like a whiny, angry person. And then, a couple of years later, oh yeah, I guess it actually does kind of cause this and this and this. There's a great video, I forget the title of it, but it's like 40 seconds of someone else that compared, he put a side by side of Halo 2 and Halo 5 on midship and just showed how in the older games, in the same time it takes to get from, say, a base to the middle of the map, you get there at the same time in both games. But in one, you can sprint and not do anything else. You can't shoot or whatever. And the other one, you can throw grenades. You can shoot at any angle. You can rotate. You can double, this type of stuff. And he's like, so which one is truly enhanced mobility in this case? And it was an interesting point.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Between that and the impact on vehicle combat, basically, it almost renders it, not even needed.
Yeah,
at this point, the AI will just dodge all the time. It's not much fun at all.
That's the other thing too, is that the armor abilities, they did lead to some kind of cool stuff in multiplayer, but in campaign, I felt like they really didn't know what to do with it. I remember for the Halo 5 video I played through the campaign with fans on Legendary, and the abilities are just completely worthless.
Yep.
Things like charge, I don't think they even drain the shields fully of elites that you run that you go into. So there's no reason to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to let you know, and tell me if you heard this before, but I have played all of my time on Cyberpunk on a Vita on remote play.
I mean, the Stadia is being shut down, but the very brief amount of positive news is that it could run Cyberpunk. And that was going around. Yeah. So no, in terms of what's so baffling about that game isn't just that there's technical issues, it's how sporadic the issues that people have are, because there were people playing that had much better computers than me having way more issues with it than I did.
You want to know how many issues I've had?
How many?
Yeah, I have a bunch of problems with The Witcher. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like, Witcher 3 had tons of bugs, but
oh yeah,
nothing to the same degree in terms of the worst that people have with Cyberpunk in terms of like, the crash and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember Sphere Hunter, fantastic YouTuber, she put out in her Cyberpunk video, I was talking to her about this. She was talking about how she has this beefy PC and she's having this bug here and this issue here. Then she plays the game on PS5, which is just the PS4 game running backwards compatible on new hardware with more RAM, and she has no issues. And it doesn't make any fucking sense for why that would possibly be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my PS4 Pro has had no issues, which is bizarre to me because I've heard the PS4 Pro is weaker than the Xbox One X even, so who knows?
Well, apparently now with the most recent patch on the next gen consoles, it's now flipped, so that now the PS5 is running 60 FPS lock no issue, and now the Xbox Series X is struggling at 40. It's fucking
Mhm.
bizarre. It makes no goddamn sense.
I'm
Which,
looking forward to your 5 years later video, 5 years down the
Yeah.
road, when we figure all
I
this
mean,
stuff out.
That's the thing. It's like, at first I'm like, maybe I'll do it 1 year later, like I did with Andromeda and in Halo 5. But then like the more news that just keeps running, I'm like, I think I'm gonna have to wait at least 2 years at this rate because there's just too much stuff going on.
Like I said before, in the meantime, do Sea of Thieves. Just
I
do
know-
it.
I'm not sure I would do it, but I know a couple of people that have binged that game pretty hard. I don't really follow streamers too much, but I did watch a video that was on Summit and his experience of him streaming that game and not losing too many viewers for it because he just was going to the game because he really wanted to play. He didn't want to just go on the Fortnite bandwagon because he wasn't enjoying the game. And he took the risk and went and did Sea of Thieves stuff, and it worked out. And I don't know what else he does. I don't know what else, but I saw that. I'm like, hey, I actually respect that. Because one of the things I really despise about streaming culture in general is the idea of, oh, you got to play the relevant game. You got to play what's in the top 10. If you're not, you're wasting your time.
See, if I ever became a streamer, I would just play random off the wall games just because that's how I kind of play, is just sporadically whatever game I decide that night.
I've toyed with the idea of streaming, like, here and there. I mean, I don't really consider myself to be a natural live speaker or whatever, but if I were to do it, I just want to do it games I've already finished. So, like, stuff like 007 Nightfire or maybe the old Tony Hawk's or whatever, just stuff, because I also don't like going into games blind with other people. There's definitely some games, like, if you go play something like Ride to Hell with a Twitch audience, I don't think you're losing too much on the authentic experience of the original. If anything, you're probably adding to it. But in terms of, like, if you play like a serious game, like Metro Exodus or Cyberpunk or whatever, having an audience there, to me kind of does kind of split. I liken it to texting in a movie type of deal.
Yeah,
that's a fair criticism. What would you say was your favorite video to produce?
I've the fact that I've mentioned a bunch of times, it could be Metro, just because of discovering that research and talking with Mandalore for hours and laughing at the blatant stealing of files and stuff like that. It was a very fun video. Also, that was the most collaborative one I ever did. I got lines from a lot of people. Mandalore did an entire segment. Hayden made his hilarious bit. My buddy Nicholas did some commentary for it. Bunny Hop got to commentate on it, which that was really awesome. So that was probably my favorite overall to make. Though, in terms of the videos themselves, it's really close in terms of what I think is my favorite. But in terms of favorite to make, it probably was the Metro video.
Okay.
It's also a situation of that one didn't give me, I don't remember that one giving me as many issues with Adobe Premiere as the others. I've joked several times that there are videos that I remember not by their content, but by the specific bug they gave me that then never reappeared on any other project. I know on my Firewatch video, for some reason, I would have to drag files. I couldn't bulk stock files. Like, I couldn't throw multiple files into the directory all at once, or else it would crash. So just drag everything one at a time, and then it's fine. And then it never repeated that bug ever again on any other project since. This is the kind of hair pulling you have to deal with when you're making videos.
From what I've heard about Adobe Premiere, is every time they push like another update, it's like the old project files have to kind of be recompiled a little bit in their software. Yep. And because of that, you wind up with bugs in specific projects that just can't be resolved.
Yep. And also Adobe has this really weird philosophy where they believe that every update is supposed to make the program slower. Because I go back to Adobe 2015 and it runs just fucking fine, like on a toaster. It runs like I did my Call of Duty 4. Now that one, of course, it had its own bugs. Like if I put clips in a specific way, it would automatically crash the entire thing. So like there were plenty of mines to step on, but I at least knew where they were because they weren't updating it and fiddling it. So it's like, hey, I know to avoid doing this exact thing or else the project will crash. So yeah, but there's in my experience, no matter what software you use, you can never escape completely scot-free. And typically when people first get the software and then everything's working great, that's the honeymoon phase, and they'll come around to, they'll start dealing with the bitchiness. I've joked several times that I liken it to like when I went to DaVinci Resolve, I'm like, I found my mistress. And then when that started glitching, and I'm like, back to the wife.
That's funny. All right,
All
well,
right,
you
so
got the next
you've
question.
mentioned a few already, but who are some of your favorite content creators here on YouTube?
Bunny Hop is Super Bunny Hop's definitely still my favorite channel. He doesn't upload as much, but still love his stuff, and he was absolutely an inspiration in terms of the channel where I got. When people say, "Hey, this is quite like a Bunny Hop video," massive compliment. Thank you. Mandalore is awesome. Shammy's hilarious, and his stuff. His is one of the most rewatchable. Examine Life of Gaming is one that I've talked to. He's a pretty cool dude, and his videos are very detailed. And very, very passion projects as well. He has very type of thing of, I'm just going to say my opinion and I don't fucking care what anyone thinks of it. I'll say this game is shit and who cares? Who cares if the video gets 500 dislikes? I don't care. I don't do this for a living, so I'm free. His video on that dude's video on Black in particular, it's 20 minutes of him just ripping that game's poor detail of guns to shreds because he's a gun nut.
Mhm.
And it's just hilarious. And it actually in some ways inspired my friend Clue to look into details in his series Gunplay. Clue Snake, I believe his channel name is on YouTube. His stuff is great as well, although he's doing more streaming now, and he's a really good streamer too. Clue without the E.
Not the okay.
Yeah.
You say Clue Snake?
Yeah, Clue Snake, I think his name. He might have changed it to Clue recently. Yeah, just try that. Just change it to Clue, because I think Clue Snake was one of his old names. Yeah,
That one?
that.
Okay.
Yep, Max Payne face. That's it. If you go to his streams, because he's streaming these, he actually just did a 24-hour stream where he got a bunch of subs. It was pretty funny to watch. On there, he just has the Max Payne face tucked away in the corner at all times, kind of like you only see the eyes of it.
It doesn't look like he's got his streams on this channel. You talking about on like Twitch?
On Twitch, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, on Twitch and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's got his Switch here.
But yeah, no, he's very excellent content creator. In terms of like the ones that inspired me, it was definitely Bunny Hop was the biggest influence that I had on me. And funny enough, not a YouTube channel. Top Gear was my biggest old influence. That show, I watched that show religiously as a kid, and that was really the one that taught me. That was the one that gave me the inkling that just because you're reviewing something like a car or a game or whatever, you can still tell a story. And then Bunny Hop was the one that cemented that, because in all of his videos, he does a supreme job framing, making you ask a question, even in something as basic as a game review. It's not, hello everybody, my name is such and such, and we're going to look at this game for the Xbox 360 and PS3, and it came out and it runs like... I could fucking look at a Wikipedia article for that type of stuff. And Steam reviews are quite frankly a lot more useful, because you click on Steam reviews and you see, oh, the game's in a bad state right now. Okay, don't buy it.
Yeah.
I get that information just immediately right away. I don't need to watch, 10 minutes of some person just meandering.
Of course, if you know a game came out a week ago and it's already dropped to $39.99, then that's a pretty good...
another warning sign too, yeah. Or it's like how, I just got Dirt 5 on Game Pass, and like I know that game, it probably didn't do particularly well if it's already in Game Pass and it came out 2 or 3 months ago. Not that it's innately bad or anything like that, but it's just, it's funny how you can kind of tell that. I mean, I think what was it? I mean, a lot of people pointed that to Fallout 76 with how quickly that game was dropping its sales price to get people in there.
Yep.
Brand new at Meijer for $3.99 a month ago.
There was some hilarious picture I have on my computer somewhere where they were bundling it with Blue Yeti microphones.
Yeah. Yep.
I remember that. That was like, in like, wasn't it a European
man.
country or something?
I think so, yeah, somewhere. No, that was gold.
It also caused one version of the Xbox One X to be $100 cheaper than all of the other models. Anyway, is there anything that we missed that you would like to cover on your channel, or anything that you'd like to ask us in particular?
I mean, in terms of like my channel, I'm one of those people that I like to just kind of let the videos kind of do the talking. I'm pretty bad at promoting material. I'm pretty bad at sort of keeping a consistent schedule or following specific, things that are in. I'm just like, hey, I'll just do a Jet Set video like right now, because why not? Mm-hmm. And it's like now apparently they just released the Team Reptile, the guys that did Lethal League. They just now released a trailer for their spiritual successor take on Jet Set Radio. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, I got tagged a bunch on Twitter. He's like, "Hey, Ray, because you talked about this. Look at it." And that's flattering and cool because in some ways I almost kind of enjoy talking about things because why not? I don't care if it's in right now or not, because I find that especially if it's not in right now, people tend to appreciate it more in that sense. Because if you do make a video that is just based on a topic that is in right now, yes, you will get some people that understand your message. You also get a lot of people that are in there just for the current conversation. And that doesn't particularly interest me too much.
I meant to bring this up earlier because you mentioned it before. You said there was a chance that your channel might have gone down a different path.
Yes. Because like back when I was starting, I was like very briefly, for a moment there, because I was, in my tweens, and I was watching, like the anti-SJW channels and stuff like that, and all those type of things, and I was in that whole phase, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do this. What was it? It was gonna be something like The Boring Truth, where I would just like very flatly respond to videos, and thank fucking God I didn't do that, because I despise the response video format. I find it utterly tedious. It is so tedious to listen to someone go on a 3-minute tirade, click the video play, and then in 5 seconds of video addresses exactly what they were just complaining about for 3 minutes in those 10 seconds because they didn't just let the video play out in full. It is such a boring format, I find. Yeah. Because I mean, like, that dates back to, I remember things like Darkness the Curse that were responding to Fox News, Jack Thompson things. Like, that's how old it is. So yeah, and that's how long I've been exposed to it. Well, so that adds to the jadedness.
Yeah.
That's how long I've seen it.
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense. I guess the last question that I've got, so now, how did you settle on your thumbnail style? Where you can literally just put your name on it with the background being the game and people will click on it. Because a lot of people have tried similar things that it just doesn't really work for most people. But maybe it's just because your name is so different from most other people's.
For me, it was pure laziness. It was pure, I don't know how to make thumbnails. I don't so I just did that. It seemed to work. And then I stuck with it. And then it became a thing of, having to do consistency. Now, when you're scrolling through there, all those ones you see on there, those are all ones that I did, quote unquote, where I found a picture that fit and then I applied my name to it. But then if you scroll up and you get to the Ferrari video, that was sent to me on Twitter by Jack Stufer. And I was like, hey, this is awesome. Can I use this as the thumbnail? And he's like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. And then when I did the E3 video, I contacted him again. I'm like, hey, would you be interested in making this thumbnail? And he said yes. And then from there, he's been really the one in charge in doing those things. I'll occasionally give him some requests and say, like, I'll give him direction at times, but he's just grown more and more to the point where he started as just making thumbnails for me, to then he started doing little animated pieces, to now he's doing the full Blender animated intros for videos. In the case of Need for Speed Carbon. So no, he's really grown, and it's been awesome to have someone to collaborate with. And because when I started this, I was just doing everything on my own. I didn't go to any writers. I didn't, work with any music people. I didn't, there's just nothing. I did, every single tedious bit, even the parts that I wasn't good at, like thumbnails. So having a graphics designer, having someone that enjoys the content and is invested in it, having someone who can stand on their own creatively is really nice. It's really nice to be able to say, hey, I don't know where to take this Need for Speed Carbon video, and then for them to send me things that make me go, yo, that's fucking awesome. Go and do that. It's really nice to, have someone else's creativity to rely upon. Also, because I just saw his face on there, Mini-Me is another channel I could recommend. It's all one word, I believe. He's mainly known for doing... Yes, him. His thumbnails are also hilarious. Very laid back, very chill. One of the nicest people I've interacted with. And his videos are just very laid back, we're going to explore this thing that really is on the back of everyone's mind, but there's no reason to talk about. There's no reason to talk about the Cars video game.
Hey, Chris
But
loves
peop-
that game.
But
It's
people do
actually
have a
really
lot of
good. I
but people do have a
recommended
lot of
it.
nostalgia for it. I played that game back in the day, and I thought it was good.
Well, even the number 3, Driven to Win, the one that came out recently, is actually pretty good. I was surprised. I was playing it with my son. We had the car
Yeah.
steering wheel, and he was sitting on my lap doing the steering wheel while I'm playing the
Yeah.
game, actually doing the game. He's like, "Dad, go right, go left." So I was like, "This is actually kind of fun."
Yeah, no. So yeah, if you want to see some videos on some games that you wouldn't think someone would talk about, that's definitely one I could recommend. That actually kind of raised a question. Being a dad, how do you look at games differently now that you have a son to take that is now interact like playing cars with you? Does that change your outlook on games as well?
It changes whether I'm willing to put up with a movie franchise game or like games that I wouldn't normally have played. Now I'm like, I wonder
Yeah.
if my son would actually want to see this game, but he's still only 3, gonna turn 4 this year, so there's not a whole lot of games that actually interest him, like Pikmin, for example. He sat with me and watched me play Pikmin for like a good hour and a half, and his concentration is usually not that long. So I was like, Pikmin might be a good one.
Dad, this game isn't very good. Can we play Witcher 3 instead?
Exactly.
But
Get to the unforeseen.
He actually liked his favorite color is red, so he liked the red Pikmin. So he made me take all the red Pikmin with me everywhere I went. So like it adds the challenge, right? He's like, I want you to do this in this game, and I'm like, yeah, but okay, all right, that's kind of hard, but we'll try it.
Yeah, because I mean, it kind of. I remember. I think it was an ancient extra credits video. I remember seeing ages ago where there was a story out there of a teacher that was playing GTA with his kids, and everyone's like, but then you keep reading, and then it says that he was just playing it with his 4-year-old son, and he'd get into a car and they would drive around the world and obey the laws of the road, and he would teach him stop signs, traffic signals, the way people react, that type of stuff. And I'm like, that's pretty cool, and that's something that I definitely wouldn't have thought to play the game as, but is totally viable.
100%, because the reactions and how you raise your level of awareness to the police in that game kind of fits following the law would not do that.
Yeah.
I will say, I think I played GTA the first time when I was 4. And I remember thinking, like,
That's the
I had
youngest
no
I've
idea
been,
why I was
yes.
picking up hookers and you'd get life back, but it was the greatest thing.
I don't think you were 4, Will.
My friend was
Yeah, I
playing
was
it
like
at
4 or 5.
7, and it was just like, hey, Jack, why are you ripping that guy's arms off? Because it's fun. Why are you shooting the police with a minigun? This is fun.
You know what game needs a years later video from you? This is my request.
Okay, fire away.
I don't think you've done it yet. Dead Rising.
Dead Rising. Okay, so I played Dead Rising 2 to completion in co-op. Love the shit out of it in the way that I love stuff like Resident Evil 5 and 6. That game is fucking hilarious. It is a game that I highly recommend to people in co-op because whether you think the game is good or bad, it's just a fun time all around. And it's one of those situations where not only is the game style and storytelling delivery fucking hilarious, where you can wear a full dinosaur mask in front of your sick daughter that you're trying to help. Not only is there hilarious context like that, there's also just dynamic gameplay moments. Like I remember me and a friend, we were in a bad spot where we're just pinned down by zombies to the point where the only way we could retreat was into the workshop in the game. For those that don't know, in the game world, there are these workshops where you can craft weapons at, but they're completely locked off. They're one way. There's no multiple exits or anything. So if you go in there and zombies come in, you're screwed if you run out of equipment there. So me and my friend, we run in there out of desperation because there's nowhere else to go. And we just start throwing shit at the table, hoping we've made a decent weapon that can fend these people off. And I happen to have whatever the combination was. It was like diamonds and a watch, I think, which is what makes the lightsaber.
Yep.
And completely turned the tide of that entire engagement. And it was amazing, and I still remember it. Yeah, Dead Rising 2 is a great game, but I've never gone and played the original and not really much past 3. I did technically have 3 on an Xbox One, but it was one of those games that I kind of just played a couple hours of and moved aside. I know Xperia is a big fan of those games.
Yeah, but, except for 4. Don't ask him about 4. He'll shut you down.
That's the other thing I keep hearing about is that 4 is apparently really bad, which frankly just makes me more curious to play it.
Here's a little thing I'm going to tell you. I actually kind of enjoyed number 4.
Yeah, well, But I mean, that's always the controversial aspect too. Is when a series falls from great to just okay, in many people's eyes, that it might as well be good and bad. I might not have that outlook, but it does make sense in many aspects.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll give you one last chance. Is there anything else you want to say?
In terms of material, whatever, like I said, I'm pretty bad about self-promotion, so I don't really feel anything to plug here other than if you are interested in watching some of my gaming content based on what we've talked about, my channel name is just my name. So right there.
There you go. Well, I want to thank you for the interview, and we're going to be recording some other segments after this. So if you guys in the audience want to see other videos with Raycevick and us, stick around for the videos coming forward, and also the videos, go check
the ones you've already watched.
So, as always, I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
And as not always, I'm Raycevick.
And we will see you
on the next CHRILLCAST. Bye, guys.